and sixes. 10, 9, 8, 76ers.
What's going on, everyone? This is UK 76ers. My name is Ben Glasspool, and last night the Philadelphia 76ers beat the Los Angeles Lakers at the Wells Fargo Center by 107 points to 106. Now, this was just a fantastic game of basketball for Sixers fans especially, but indeed for the neutral, and I think even Laker fans, despite the loss, could at least appreciate that was a very entertaining game of basketball. Probably one of the best games we've seen so far. Everyone was, fully fit. AD was playing, LeBron was playing, Joel was playing, Ben Simmons was playing. Everyone was fully fit, and everyone was really fancy in this game. Everyone wanted to go for it, and it showed. It went down just right to the last possession. Admittedly, it shouldn't have gone to that if the Sixers were a bit more competent in that last quarter. But who cares? We got the win. It was fantastic to get there. But there's a lot of things to dissect from this. It was, in many respects, our first proper challenge. Look, we've played the Celtics and we've played the Heat, but unfortunately they weren't fully fit. Jason Tatum wasn't playing. Kemba Walker was on a minutes restriction against the Heat. Adebayo wasn't playing. Butler wasn't playing. Dragic wasn't playing. Not even Kendrick Nunn was playing. So I don't think we got a really good feel for how good this team actually is. And this was the first game where we really thought, I think we all appreciated this was our first real test where, look, we always expect to win at the Wells Fargo Center, but we can at least appreciate this is going to be an absolute battle, and we've got to earn this win, and we've got to earn every point. And we did that just about. Now, we got off to an absolutely fantastic start, and it was no coincidence that this start was, forwarded by Ben Simmons being aggressive, and it was fantastic to see, don't get me wrong, but it's perplexing when you see Ben Simmons right from the off. He was like, yeah, I'm ready, I'm willing and ready to attack LeBron James, arguably the greatest player of all time. I personally don't think he is, but he's, at the very least, he's the second greatest player of all time. And he's happy to go at Anthony Davis, who's supposedly Defensive Player of the Year candidate. We'll get into AD in a second, that Defensive Player of the Year candidate stuff, because I've got a grind to get, a wick to get with that. But Ben Simmons, right from the offset, he was going after LeBron, he was going after AD, and then you think back to, remember those Miami games, he didn't even want to go after Kelly Olynyk, he didn't want to go after Gabe Vincent, and in the Memphis game, he didn't want to go after Kyle Anderson, he didn't want to go after Grayson Allen, but, LeBron James, Anthony Davis, yeah, go for it, I'll go for him. And the commentary said it, this team is so different when Ben Simmons is aggressive. And it really is. He's just an extra threat. If you think he's going to be passing all the time and being passive and not going to go to the rim, then that's one less guy you have to worry about. It's as simple as that. It's just another guy you have to worry about, and another guy who offensively can be elite, at least at driving to the rim, getting to the hoop, and that you're going to have to really worry about. And you can't just double team Joel Embiid, or you can't just like I said, sag off and not worry about him, because he will get his way if you do that. And that was a breath of fresh air. And look, I do kind of think he's turned a corner this season. I'm not sure which game it was. I want to say it was a final Celtics game where I really felt this will be the catalyst for change. This is when we'll see Ben Simmons be Ben Simmons. Because this is who he is. What we saw in those first however many games, that's not Ben Simmons. This is Ben Simmons. This is what we expect, on a nightly basis, really. And I don't think it's too much to ask. He finished on 17, 11, and 10, none of which were from the free throw line, none of those points, which is frustrating, but it's also refreshing to know that he can get 17 points just doing his own thing. Actually, I believe he got one from the free throw line, excuse me, but the majority of which were from the field. And it's just, like I said, it's refreshing to know that he can get these points on the field. Look, if he incorporated the free throw side of things into his game, then that's a 24 point, swing he gets. But it's a fantastic game, 70-point triple-double, and we needed every single one of those assists, every single one of those rebounds, and every single one of those points. Of course, it's a one-point game, but he was crucial to this win. And we see that with the threes that were drained. And Seth Curry had another, not the best night ever, but, I think, there's obviously something happened since he came back from the COVID thing, but, we know what Seth Curry is, and he will get back to his old self, I'm sure. But Danny Green stepped up, and I'm not sure if it's just because that's who he is. This is Danny Green, or if it's because, he's playing his old team. He's playing against his old employers, the people who traded him for Dennis Schroeder. He's playing against those guys again, and he wants to show that I'm still good. And he was fantastic today on both sides of the field. He finished on 14 and 6, 4 of 9 from 3, hit some really good threes, and he just doesn't force anything. Admittedly, sometimes late in the shot clock, he has to do that little pump fake thing and then step back 3. But normally when we run the play correctly, he's just in the corner waiting for his number to be called, and he just drained it. It's as simple as that. He plays a very simple game on the offensive end, but it's an effective one, and the gravity he brings frees up that space for everyone. But he was fantastic. And I want to talk about the defensive side of things, just poking balls away. I think it was Anthony Davis was backing him down, and Green poked him away. I think he finished on 2 steals on a block, Danny Green. on top of his 14 points and 6 rebounds. He was electric. We all know his defensive limitations come from the fact that when PE's up against that nippy, quicker guy, he struggles. We saw with Wayne Ellington, who was going around screens and getting those open threes. And we saw it today when Dennis Schroeder had a bit more space on him. He just blew past him and kept getting to the rim pretty easily. But when he was getting back down, when the game was slow, a bit slower, and he was against a guy, and it would be LeBron on occasion, be it AD on occasion. More often than not, it was KCP. I believe that's who was matched up with him the majority of the game, and indeed sometimes on Schroeder, of course. And he was very, very good. He got those pokes, got those steals, and he disrupted their offense. And he was fantastic. Probably, we can talk about that 29-point game where he got, I don't know what, 9 threes. But I think it was his best game in the Sixers jersey by a country mile, because he was doing what we want on both sides of the floor. And I really thought his experience helped bring us through, because he's been in those late game situations before. I mean, he's done it obviously on the Lakers, he's done it at the Raptors, he's done it at the Spurs. He knows what it takes to grind out these wins, and I think he was very, very good today. Or last night even. When we talk about that first quarter, we finished on 34 points to 24, 10-point advantage to us. Embiid and Gasol, that was the thing you're going to worry about, because a lot of people like to say Gasol has Embiid's number, and to his credit, Marc Gasol has done very well against Embiid. But that 7-game series he had against Embiid, there was illness, there was injuries, there's whatever else. And then that 0-point game that we had last season, I think there is no excuse for it. I think it's just one of those freak things that kind of happen. But I think Embiid knew he had to prove himself, and from the offset, he made it very, very clear he's not here to mess about, because I think that matchup was whoever wins in those early stages will have a very good chance of winning the game for their team. If Embiid showed immediately early on that Marc Gasol will not have his number and he won't just let Marc Gasol get his way, then we'd do very well this game. And if Marc Gasol proved that he's got Joel Embiid's number and that he can defend him all game, then we'd struggle. But Embiid made it clear early on. He'll back him down. He'll face up, get those fouls, get those and ones. And he wasn't here to muck about. He finished on 28 points. And to be honest, it wasn't even Embiid's best game. We've definitely seen him have better games. But to have an average game, even arguably below average, if you're holding to such a high standard, then and to get 28 points, then you're just doing something right. Look, here's the MVP so far this season. But unfortunately, with the way the awards go, and I will talk about how I think the awards will go later on in this game, because in this video, because I think there's a nice time to talk about this, especially when you've got 2 Defensive Player of the Year candidates and 2 MVP candidates playing in the same game. I will talk about that a bit later, so just bear with me on that side of things. But no, the first quarter was very good. And normally we see it in the last few minutes of the first, that when we bring that bench unit in, we struggle. And I like the adjustments that we made. And I did tweet this out, is that, look, we talk about Matisse Thybulle, and we know the invaluable defense he brings. But sometimes when he's part of a lineup, especially when he's in that bench unit, he can be a bit of a worry, because he can't really get his points. But we had Matisse, we had Green, we had Curry, we had Embiid, we had Simmons. So essentially, we had a starting lineup plus Matisse, and I think that works well for Matisse, because that means he knows all he needs to do is bring his defense, and then Simmons or Embiid or Curry or Green will do the rest on the offensive end. All you got to do is just keep the defense honest, keep moving about, keep trying to find spaces, and if the shot's there for you, the shot's there for you. But I really like that, because it takes the pressure off him completely. When he's with that bench unit, sometimes you have to go to him. If you can't Shake and Max, you can't do it all, and sometimes you have to go to Matisse, and that's when we start missing buckets, and the other team goes on runs. So I really liked how he incorporated Matisse into this lineup, because it meant that we covered him up on the offensive end, but allowed him to do what he does on the defensive end. And he got a couple good steals. He was a pest. Look, LeBron did have his way against him, and he did draw those fouls against him, which is as expected. I think sometimes Matisse is quite raw defensively on that side, and he's to wise up just a tad. But he is an elite defender, and LeBron James is an elite player as well. So you can forgive him if LeBron James has the better of him. On a couple of occasions, what he has to do is slow people down and force them to take bad shots, which I think for the most part he did. Fantastic for Matisse Thybulle. Look, no points, but I think the defensive side of things, he saved a hell of a lot of points for us. Can't complain one bit. Second quarter comes. Shaky first few plays. I think the Lakers made various defensive adjustments that we struggled to really react to. We controlled the tempo in that first quarter, and that allowed Ben Simmons to get in transition. That allowed the game to be played at a pace that we wanted to at the very least. But then the Lakers slowed it down, and they have a really good bench depth, really good defensive players. We can talk about Anthony Davis, we can talk about LeBron when he wants to be. But Alex Caruso is a really good defender. KCP is a really good defender. Wes Matthews, I thought, was really impressive on the defensive end. And we struggled. We had a lot of wasted possessions as a result. And Doc Rivers even said that what you could hear is hoarse, raspy voice shout from the sideline. too many wasted possessions. I'm paraphrasing, of course, but too many wasted possessions, and it really did show. There were turnovers. We were forcing things up. We were a lot of mid-range shots. Which, look, I don't care how good you are from the mid-range. You'll let anyone take a mid-range shot simply because it's just a shot you'll let them have. It's just not a shot you're too worried if people take. And yeah, it wasn't that good. So we struggled to find our feet in that second quarter. Korkmaz played over Tyrese Maxey, and I hate to have this Korkmaz witch hunt. I do like the guy because I've got nothing against the bloke, the person, Furkan Korkmaz. But over Tyrese Maxey, especially when we need someone that can create their own offense on occasion, get a bit of penetration, get a bit of drive. Look, Korkmaz did have a couple good buckets. One for the mid range, I believe he pulled up over LeBron James, which is pretty cool. Hit a couple threes, I believe. But I'd rather see those minutes go to Tyrese Maxey. I'm sure a lot of you guys agree. But he got 8 points, Korkmaz, so that's fine. I can't complain too much. 8 points against the Lakers, fine. That's okay. It's just defensively, it just wasn't that good, and he isn't defensively that good. But fine. If you get 8 points, I can't complain that much. The big thing was free throws for myself, and this failure at the free throw line. This happened throughout the game, in my opinion. Embiid missed. It always seemed to be split. It always seemed to be drain one, miss one, or miss one then drain one. And had we just been a bit better at the free throw line, I believe we were. How was our percentage? We were 16 out of 26 on the free throw line. So it's about what, 55%? Not that good. No, sorry, that's about 60% or so. It's not that good. We expect a bit more, especially when Dwight Howard he had none from four, and he is what 53% three-point shooter, but that means he should be getting at least two. I mean, at the very least one. And he blew a wide open layup, which could have been an and one, which is a bit of a shame. I'm getting a bit frustrated with Dwight Howard. I do still think he's a very good player, but perhaps we just give Tony Bradley a couple of his minutes because perhaps Dwight needs a rest. Perhaps he just needs give his head a wobble, and just have a bit of a timeout and then come back stronger. Look, he's a pro; he knows what he needs to do. But I think we should just give some of his minutes to Tony Bradley, especially in the next game, because I think Bradley's deserved it. And if you're not getting your minutes on merit, then that's a huge issue with the team itself. And I do think Tony Bradley deserves some of Dwight's minutes. We'll just have to see on that. And I don't like that. Dwight did start the fourth. He gave away almost 3 or 4 fouls in about 5 minutes. Now, you have no issue with Dwight Howard, because the whole point of Dwight Howard from the bench is that he can be aggressive and he can give away fouls because you're not too fussed if he fouls out, because you've got Joel who's going to play the majority of the minutes regardless. But the issue I have is that when they're needless fouls, and admittedly I think some of them the refs got the call wrong, so I can't blame Dwight too much. But when you get 3 or 4 fouls in the first 5 minutes in the final quarter, put them in the bonus so early because you're arguing back too much, or you're being overly aggressive, or you're putting your elbows in where you shouldn't, or whatever else, then that makes the team suffer. And there was a disparity in that fourth quarter because of the free throws that the Lakers were getting early on, because we got in the bonus too early, because Dwight just can't help but foul seemingly. So that needs working on. And look, Dwight for the most part has been good. Last 2 games 2 or 3 games has been shaky. I think perhaps the rest are doing good. I think Tony Bradley does deserve to get another shot, because he was fantastic against the Pistons, probably the only player that can come off that court with his head held high. And yeah, we got the Timberwolves next. Why not? Give it a whirl. Timberwolves, I believe they're still missing Karl Anthony Towns. I can't imagine Embiid's going to play, to be honest. So you're going to see Dwight and Bradley regardless, but I'd like to see Bradley get that starting spot if possible. But anyway, that's Dwight Howard. He only played a couple minutes. But yeah, he could have had 5 points easily, but finished on none. So we come to the end of the second half, 51-55. Lakers mount a bit of a comeback in that second quarter, 27-21 in that quarter. Lakers obviously advantaged by 6. At the half, Simmons had 10, 3 and 6, Green 9 and 4, Embiid 16, 3 and 2, James 22, 5 and 3, Davis 14 and 3. Now LeBron James was simply keeping him in this game. I looked at the on-off numbers at the half, the plus minuses, etc. LeBron James is on a 0, and that might sound underwhelming. But when you look at the rest of the team, everyone else was on a minus 10 or so. LeBron James was keeping this team in this game. And it made what was clear to me is look, I really think Anthony Davis is a fantastic player. And I'm not just trying to have a go at the guy because all the Sixers are beating him. And I haven't watched all the Lakers games, and perhaps this was a blip. But what I thought was, quite evident was that when Joel doesn't have Ben on the floor, Joel can get to work and get his. When Davis doesn't have James on the floor, he seems to struggle. Perhaps that's because the defensive effort we put on Anthony Davis was fantastic. Tobias, especially against Anthony Davis, held his own, did fantastically well. Didn't let himself be bullied by him. And I thought he did really well on AD. And then Joel went on AD a fair bit, and that was a really fun battle to see, albeit we didn't see as much as I had hoped because AD seemed to back away from Joel on his defensive side of things. But you see LeBron, he draws a double, and then AD has a free bucket in the paint. And then I contrast that with what Joel does. He's backing his guy down. He's taking him from mid-range face up, or he might even shoot a three, or he hits a fadeaway. And I think AD's game is made a hell of a lot easier by LeBron James, and that's a sign of a good duo if it's made easier by your fellow superstar. But I think AD has just been a tad overrated. He's still a fantastic player. Don't get me wrong, but you'd struggle to see what he could do without LeBron or without that facilitator, just given those easy looks. He's got a good face-up mid-range game to his credit, and he can drain the three better than Joel can. But I was quite underwhelmed by Anthony Davis because whenever he's not with LeBron James on the floor, you're not too worried about the guy. Third quarter started exactly the same as the first. It was fast-paced. It was Danny Green threes, Tobias Harris threes, 10-2 run right for the offset, and then Lakers came back with 8 straight points. Then there was this LeBron James flagrant. And look, people want to use this as ammunition to have a dig at LeBron James and LeBron James's character, and some people use it as some sort of way to involve it into the Michael Jordan, LeBron James debate. But I'm done with that debate. I know where I stand on it, but indeed, if you stand on the other side, I have no complaints. Let's just enjoy both the players because you're enjoying one or the other. It's not mutually exclusive. You can enjoy both. So we come to the LeBron James flagrant, and he pushes Embiid with 2 hands whilst he's in midair. And this should, in my opinion, been a flagrant 2, an ejection. And immediately after, Embiid gets a flagrant, and what was in the flow of the offense, and he did hit AD in the head. There's no intention, but the issue I took with the fact that they're both called flagrant ones is that essentially suggests that these two are the same in terms of the severity of the action, therefore garnering the same punishment, and that's not the case at all. Embiid's, like I said, no intention. It was just in his usual movements, and unfortunately he hit AD. It probably was the correct decision to at least give a foul at the very least. Whether or not it's flagrant, not for me. But this LeBron James one, he pushed a near 300-pounder in midair like so, and that could have really, really, really hurt Embiid and really injured him. And I don't think LeBron James, he didn't mean to injure him. Of course he didn't. I just think it was extremely negligent, and I think he put Embiid in a lot of danger. And I think had it not been LeBron James, it would have been an ejection. You can't ever, use that as an excuse for why it should be because had it not been him, because we don't know. We can't speak in hypotheticals. But I think, if it was Patrick Beverley or Marcus Morris, people that no one really likes, it's an ejection straight off the bat. Even someone like Joel, if he did it, I can see that being an ejection because they go off reputation, and LeBron James is protected somewhat by the refs. He seems to be able to argue as much as he likes to his heart's desire without any repercussions. Especially when you look at, Dwight seems to be getting a tech on almost anything and everything, especially when it comes to arguments. LeBron James can scream and shout in a referee's face and nothing happens. That's a bit of a tangent. I do like LeBron James. I like watching him play, but I just don't like the way the refs treat him differently, and that's not LeBron's fault. If you're going to get away with it, you're going to get away with it. But the refs need to stand up to the guy a bit more and be a bit braver with their decision making because this was a really dangerous play, and it should have been an ejection in my opinion. Thankfully, we still won this game, but had we lost and Embiid got injured and LeBron just goes away scot-free, then that's a huge issue that would need addressing. But like I said, thankfully it didn't come to that. So can I complain too much? No, not really. But let's just hope that this, either you be consistent with those decisions or you address it and you ensure that this doesn't happen again. Another issue I want to talk about is something that's bugged me for a while, and it happened in this game, and albeit it's not the be all or end all. It's the clear path fouls and the laws surrounding it, and they're really frustrating me. Like Matisse Thybulle was about to blow past Montrezl Harrell and he had Embiid to his left. But because I believe the rule that Mike Breen was explaining is that you've got to have your shoulders in front of the defender to be deemed a clear path foul, therefore it's not a clear path foul. Which surely it should be if you're about to score a bucket, in the referee's opinion, use your due diligence, use what you know about the players, use what you know about the play itself, look at it, the momentum, who's moving where, who's moving at what speed, the direction of each player, where their feet set, Use your expertise as basketball referees who've watched a million games of basketball in your time. Is it more likely than not that Matisse Thybulle either gets a pass away to Joel Embiid, who's free, who's ahead of Montrezl Harrell, or he blows past Montrezl Harrell and gets his own points? If that is the case, that you're fairly certain this is going to happen. That's a clear path foul. He's stopping a guaranteed bucket. So I hate that rule, and I think it's just something that needs addressing. And it's happened a couple of times against the Sixers, and I'm sure it's happened to some of your guys' teams, be it the Celtics, be it the Raptors, be it whoever you support. It's happening to every team, and it's very frustrating. And I think it's a way in which it rewards bad defending. It rewards teams who have been slack on the offensive end, who you can't be bothered to get back in transition or whatever else. It rewards them, and it shouldn't. It should reward the defensive team for being, having that defensive prowess to be able to go on that and get the ball back and fast break quickly and turn good defense into offense. And it doesn't reward good defense getting turned into good offense. Something that annoyed me, something needs addressing. Into that fourth quarter, Maxey finally gets a few minutes, and we see what we needed to see: penetration. And sometimes we miss that. When Embiid isn't playing, we look clueless without the ball. We still did this game. There was a play I recall where Milton and Harris were passing the ball at the top of the key. And before you know it, 8 seconds left of the shot clock, we put up a bad shot. Part of that is because we don't penetrate. No one's brave enough to go at their defender. And maybe that's a testament to the Lakers defense. I alluded to before, they have really good defenders on their bench and indeed on their starters. But Maxey comes on and he's willing to blow by whoever. And he'll have that floater game. He'll, hit it off the backboard and whatever else. And he had a really good few minutes. I think he only got 4 points, but he had a good few minutes and was a good spark off the bench. Harris, of course, was another efficient scoring game. We know he got that not buzzer beater, got that game winner. He was fantastic. Simmons was still aggressive. Sometimes when you see his aggression either seems to come at the end or come at the start, but he had it at the start and he had it at the finish in between, here and there. But when I talk about the Lakers defense, and this is where I will talk about the awards side of things. I'll talk about the defensive player of the year side of things here. I looked at Ben Simmons in this game, and immediately the first play you could see, right, my guy's LeBron James, because I'm the best defender on this team, and I will guard the best player on their team. I'll be the best player in the league, LeBron James. Flip that over to the other side. Anthony Davis, everyone touts him, particularly Lakers fans who are often deluded, but everyone and the media love him, so they perpetuate this narrative. But Anthony Davis should be Defensive Player of the Year. He doesn't go anywhere near Joel Embiid. They sticking Marc Gasol on him at the start. I get that. I think it doesn't mean AD doesn't get tired out, and Marc Gasol has proven to be pretty solid on Embiid in the past. But then there came a point when Montrezl Harrell comes in, who's a notoriously bad defender, and he did seem like he had a knock of some sort as well. So why isn't then Anthony Davis going on Joel Embiid there? Why is he afraid to engage with Joel Embiid? I think he could give him a good matchup. But I do think Joel had the best of the matchup, but it will at least slow him down more so than Montrezl Harrell. You've got to give some credit and some respect to Anthony Davis. He's a good defender. And Joel Embiid, because Joel Embiid is such a good offensive player, good offense always beats good defense, but at the very least, he would slow Embiid down. And Anthony Davis didn't want any involvement in it. And I just think it's kind of cowardly. It's kind of pathetic. How can you let the claims of Defensive Player of the Year come to you and you don't want to guard Joel Embiid? So I thought that was a bit pathetic, and it was we wanted to see that matchup more so. I was happy to see Embiid going against Harrell. I would much rather see it from a point of I want to see the Sixers win this game. But from a basketball fan's perspective, you want to see that matchup. And I think it's a shame that Anthony Davis has shied away from him. But anyway, that's just a little tangent. And I do think, someone did point out to me, well, what they were doing is that they're letting AD come as the second defender, as the help. Why? I don't really understand that scheme, because the help defender can be absolutely anyone. We've seen it before. It's just essentially a lot of the time the person that comes to double Embiid is just the closest guy to Embiid at the point in the post. So they have the guy he's posting up, and then whoever's nearest to him, they then rotate round or whatever else. But yeah, I just thought that was a really pathetic play on Anthony Davis's side. Things to be labelled as the Defensive Player of the Year when you've got one guy in Ben Simmons who's given his all against LeBron James. And look, LeBron James did get a couple of points on Simmons, but what was noticeable was sometimes he blew past him, and LeBron James is quick and he's strong, and that sometimes is what happens. But I don't recall LeBron James ever ever like considering even doing a pull-up three against Ben Simmons or having that mid-range fader against Ben Simmons, because he knew he wouldn't couldn't get his points like that. It had to be blowing past him and catching him slightly off guard, which he did on occasion, to his credit. But it's also to Ben Simmons' credit that he wasn't trying these shots against him because he knew that Ben Simmons would likely have the better of him. Now look at Joel Embiid, had an elite rim protection, had a great block on LeBron James, that resulted in a Danny Green pull-up three. And, he had a good rim protector Joel is, and occasionally he pitches in with a couple steals also. So I look at Joel and Ben, who looked streaks ahead of Anthony Davis on the defensive end. But the unfortunate thing about the way in which NBA awards work, it is still more likely, even after this game, that Anthony Davis wins the Defensive Player of the Year after this season, more so than Ben Simmons, more so than Joel Embiid, despite the fact that they probably deserve it more if this maintains itself. And that's because sports media, you'll have the guy like Nick Wright, who love the Lakers, love LeBron, and will keep touting Anthony Davis the Defensive Player of the Year. And that's unfortunately how it works. And it's a shame. And it's similar with the MVP race. Look, if LeBron wins the MVP, playing how he is now over Embiid, sometimes you've got to hold your hands up. But Embiid, in my opinion, has been better. But LeBron will get them because people love LeBron. People think, they want to take the storyline into account as if that's a reason why you should be given MVP. Your age shouldn't matter. Look, he's doing fantastically well at his age, and we haven't seen anything like this before, but that just shouldn't matter at all. That is an issue I do have with NBA awards in general. Too much of it's narrative driven rather than what have we seen on the court. But anyway, let's talk about how this ended. Lakers finished on a 13-2 run in that last five, and they put a really good defensive lineup. They had KCP, they had Caruso, they had LeBron, they had AD, and I want to say Schroeder. Really good defensive lineup. We couldn't figure it out. We had a really sloppy last few possessions. Doris Burke quoted as indecisive, which I think was a perfect way to summarize it. It was a lot of indecisive plays late in the shot clock. We had to throw things up. Remember Danny Green one in the corner. They just had to throw up and to no avail. Lakers ended up hitting a fair few threes. KCP got one. Schroeder got one. And before you know it, they were back in the game. And it was a really worrisome time. Caruso got one as well. And they ended up within the last possession. They had a nice little, Schroeder screens Embiid, frees up AD, who just has to run to the hoop and get his. And that last possession, I thought, we're done. I think, this is so sixery almost that we would lose this. But we fought back that last possession. Joel draws people in by trying to go low post. Harris screens Caruso off, gets the switch, comes around, gets to the mid-range, which he was having so much joy from all game. Drains it. Lakers have no timeouts left. 2.4 seconds left to go. We win it by a point. Fantastic show. And we're going to learn a lot from it. We're going to learn to, not rest on your laurels, to go for the jugular early, step on their necks. They don't make these comebacks in the last 5 minutes. But it also shows that we know how to manage late game situations, which is kind of weird because we didn't show that. But the last play is the one that mattered and the one that counted. And we showed that we knew what to do. But it's also just being wiser, using the clock, making sure that you don't turn the ball over. Getting rebounds, because one of their threes came from us being slack on our own defensive glass, but we got there in the end. But there's a lot of lessons to learn, good and bad, and I think this game could be a turning point. I'm not sure for what, but at least it wisens this team up. It brings experience, and with experience comes a less of a likelihood that you make the same mistakes again. It can only be a positive, really. So that was Los Angeles Lakers v. the Philadelphia 76ers. We've got the Timberwolves on early Saturday morning, so Friday evening if you're watching from Philly. I can't expect Joel Embiid to play, and if Joel Embiid's not playing, I can't expect to win. I mean, that's unfortunately the way it's been this season. But, I wanted to win this game more than anything. So we beat the Celtics twice. We beat the Lakers. I'm happy to pitch it with a loss to the Pistons and a loss to the T-Wolves if that's what it takes. We are now 10-0 with this starting five playing. I still believe we're technically undefeated at the Wells Fargo Center because the only time we did lose was the Nuggets when we had to play our third string team with 7-8 players. But this was fantastic. We remain top of the East, and we've got to keep marching on. We've got to keep going, keep trying to learn from the wins and indeed the losses, and just keep going from strength to strength. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and share. I'm sorry this one's a bit longer, but there's a lot to unpack from this game. And I'll see you all for the T-Wolves game. Thanks very much, guys.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7.